Welcome to Kara's Cures, where we explore the cutting edge of wellness. Today we are talking about a time-tested way to relieve stress and even increase creativity. Joining me now is Linda Monk. She is the director of the International Association of Journal Writing. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Kara.
It sounds like a simple thing, and maybe people are doing it, or maybe you haven't done it since you wrote to your diary in elementary school, but how can journaling really help our well-being?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't really think about journaling as something that might be supportive of their health and wellness. And there's actually over 30 years of research in the expressive writing field, the writing to heal field, that shows when we go to the page to write about our thoughts and our feelings, that it can have a lot of healing qualities, including things like helping people to reduce blood pressure. There's been studies that have showed improved immune function. People have the benefits of reducing stress is a common outcome that the research shows. So it's something, like you say, Kara, that's so simple. We may have done it when we were young. It may be something we've done off and on in our lives. And that act of taking time for ourselves to think and mentally declutter can have a lot of health and healing benefits. And it's easy to do, and it can be enjoyable as well.
Yeah, it doesn't cost a lot of money either. But during the pandemic, people have really had to deal with a lot of anxious and fearful feelings. And a lot of people have turned to journaling. So how do you do it? How does it help when you're feeling anxious to journal?
Yeah. Well, one of the things is there's two things with that. One is that when we can write about and get our worries and anxieties out, that can have a cathartic effect. It really can help relieve that pressure that we can be carrying inside. We kind of get what's on the inside out. In saying that, we don't want to ruminate there. We don't just want to write about all of our fears and worries and anxieties, because that can spiral people into a greater sense of despair, even a sense of depression. So we want to get it out enough that we feel relief, but we don't want to keep going to lead us into despair. So we really want to pay attention when we're writing and just take notice. How am I feeling by getting all of these worries and stressors down? Am I feeling that sense of relief? And that's a good time to stop. It's like, okay, I've got it out. I got a bit of relief here. And now I'm going to move on to something else.
I have to say that I've learned that it does help. In fact, I have a legal pad by my desk, and if I start to get too jumbled, of course, to-do lists can help. Just writing down what we have to do can feel less overwhelmed. But sometimes I will just take a minute or two and just write out. It's called automatic writing, where we just kind of write, and anything comes out. And you really do feel better afterward. Even if you don't have a nice, perfect journal, right? You can throw that little piece of paper away. But the act of writing does something to calm our mind and calm our nervous system.
It definitely does. It helps to really engage that relaxation response in the mind and body and helps the central nervous system to settle. It also gives us that sense of control. Sometimes when we're under a lot of pressure and stress, and of course the pandemic has had that, everything can just feel out of our control and overwhelming. And when we are able to unload and gain some clarity through writing, we get that feeling that at least that's in our control. We can choose to do that. We can choose to do something that can have a helpful benefit. And it doesn't have to take long. Even 5 minutes of just jotting things down can be helpful. And we can also write about things that make us feel good. So we can impact our mood by what we focus on, because of course, what we think about impacts how we feel, impacts how we act, how we behave. And if we want to feel better, we can write about things that bring us joy, things we feel grateful for. And these things can naturally elevate our mood. They also shift our focus from those stressful, anxious types of things to those more life-affirming, positive types of things. So that balance can be so important in our journals. A quick reset when I'm feeling really just stressed or overwhelmed, I'll just grab my journal and write down 10 things I'm grateful for, or 5 things that have been good about my day, and just reorient in my emotional self, my mental self, and it really can be so helpful.
Yeah, so that's actually how we can use it to cultivate happiness. And I noticed on your webpage at the International Association of Journal Writing, A lot of people are into manifesting and are learning about the idea that we want, what kind of life do you want to create? The pandemic has certainly had people reevaluate, like, what do you really want? So how do you, I saw one prompt where you said you can write as if it's already happened. And how does that help?
Yeah. There's lots of different journaling techniques. There's books written on them, but what you're referring to is a technique called affirmative writing. And it's where we write the future as if it's in the present tense. So you can think about something a year from now, 5 years from now, any length of time away, and write about it as if it's already happened. So, for example, I really want to write a best-selling memoir, in progress with writing an adoptee memoir. And my journal might sound like, I'm so happy and grateful now that I've published my memoir. It's winning awards, it's reaching people, it's helping all kinds of people. And I would write in that way in my journal. Because what that does is it engages us in that emotional state of how it will feel when that happens. And that helps us actually magnetize towards that. So we can actually use it as a tool for manifesting. And I've done this many times in my life. I've moved to an island with that technique. I've started my business with that technique, other things as well. But it really engages that law of attraction. And it helps us then to take action towards those dreams and goals. We're acting as if it's already so. What did it take to make that happen? And it can bring all kinds of clarity, energy, motivation, inspiration by writing in that way.
Yes, and certainly from the law of attraction camp, it would be that because, as you said, we're feeling that way as we write it, we can't help but feel what we're thinking. But even on a practical sense, I've seen a lot of business books tell people if you're wanting to get a job, writing down exactly what your day looks like. You wake up feeling a certain way, you're working with this type of team. It can bring you also a lot of clarity because sometimes we just don't know exactly even what we want next.
And in fact, that's very true. I've been a life coach now for over 15 years and a registered social worker for 30 years. And one of the biggest things people request support with is getting clear on what they want. A lot of times we spend energy focusing on what we don't want. We don't want this kind of job or this kind of boss or this kind of commute or this kind of partner. Where our energy is infused into that which we don't want. And what we focus on grows. So if we orient towards being clear on what are our criteria for that ideal job, for example. So pick up your journal and write down, where do you want that job to be? What kind of boss do you want? What kind of work do you want to be doing? How will your gifts and talents shine? Describe that perfect job or that perfect home or that ideal partner in as much detail as you can in the pages of your journal. Because it helps then to, there's this thing called the reticular activating system. So for example, let's say you wanted to buy a new car and you think, oh, I want to buy a Mustang convertible. And all of a sudden you start noticing Mustang convertibles. They were always out there on the road, but because you've set your attention there, you start noticing them. And so the journaling activates that for us. We've really named what we want. We've named it with clarity. We might not know how we're going to get it, but the act of naming it in such a clear way is already a step towards achieving it. And it can be a lot of fun to do it. It helps us really access what do we want and giving ourselves permission to even ask that question. What would it look like if I had the job I love, not just one I might settle for? And that brings out a whole bunch of things to write about.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. I agree with you. I've used this technique, and it's sometimes almost magical that you're like, wow, and it really happened just the way I wrote it down. So taking even a few moments a day, writing on scrap pieces of paper, I think it's nice to have little cute journals, but if you're just getting started, you don't have to have a formal practice. What do you suggest just to get people in the habit?
Yeah. First, I would ask yourself, what has helped you create other habits? So you probably have other types of habits in your life, what you do when you first wake up, what you do before you go to bed, and think about what kind of journaling habit would you like? Would you like to write first thing in the morning and just do some free association writing like you mentioned, Kara, where you just pick up your pen and start writing whatever comes? Maybe you want to write at your lunch break at work just to tune in and ground and de-stress in your day. So picking a time that you'd like to write, having your tools, and that can be a scrap piece of paper, or pick yourself up a journal that you like and a pen, kind of the tools of the journaling trade, and then commit to it. Know why you want to do it. because maybe you want to write because you want to improve your health, or you want to de-stress, or you want to gain clarity. Get a little sense of why you might like to do it, because that why motivates us to actually do the thing. And so let's say I want to lose weight. Maybe that's because I want to be healthier. Well, the times I don't feel like going to the gym, or the times I don't feel like eating healthy, I'm going to do that because I know what my why is. And the same is true with journaling. So know why you want to do it, have the tools, pick a time, and make it easy. Make it easy to do. If there's a whole bunch of obstacles in the way, we're less likely. So if it's in your schedule, like a real thing, just like meeting up with a friend or showing up to work on time, make that commitment to yourself that I'm taking this 5 minutes or 10 minutes to take time for myself to do something that's healthy, that's self-caring, that has many benefits, and then make it happen. So have your tools, your time, and say, I'm committed to this.
Yeah, I think it also helps when people just have it ready, right? You don't have to go look for it. So maybe you just leave that notebook or journal or piece of paper just somewhere where you're sitting so that you can bring it out and start writing. So that's
exactly
one of my Kara's tips. If it's there, I might see it and do it. But also, I think it's such a good thing. I have a teenage daughter and a son who's 12. And, for kids, this can really be helpful, especially they're under so much stress and pressure these days. How do you suggest we get kids started or get them to see this as something that might really help them cope?
Yeah, I have two teenagers as well, two boys, 16 and 14. And young people always have lots of different stressors growing up. And the pandemic, of course, has brought unique stressors for them as well. And letting them know that it is helpful. Again, they might not know that they're already used to a lot of communication in digital ways. So they can journal on their phones. They can open a new note, type away or dictate. They can find a medium that works for them. And to know that it's private, they don't have to share it with anyone, that taking time, there's so much input coming at them, so much fast-paced communication, that there's value to just stop, just unplug and plug into yourself. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? It's a very empowering act to write. And teens can feel overwhelmed. And I think if we say to them, look, this can help you feel calmer. This can help you concentrate better at school. This can help you in your relationships. And give it a try and make it invitational, not a should or, big ask, but you might want to try this. And you can sit, sometimes I've sat in our family. And my boys are really aware, obviously, that journaling is a big part of my life. And they're not into it at this point. However, my 14-year-old son, Jesse, recently was saying, when people are stressed, there's lots of things they can do to help. And I said, well, like what, Jesse? He said, well, they could go for a run, they could go fishing, they could journal. And I was like, yes, they could. And so he has it in his awareness that it is a thing that can be helpful for relaxing, even though he himself doesn't do it. And kids usually have friends, they'll see people with a journal out at school, or someone pull out a notebook in class or on the bus. So they do see other kids. Lots of young people journal, lots of executives journal, and people of all walks of life journal. And so if they can see that they can relate, that it's something their peers are doing, and sort of make it something that's normal and helpful, I think it can, and fun. They can have fun with it. They can doodle, they can take pictures and put it in their journal. They can really make it their own creative wellness practice if they wish.
Yeah, I know that bullet journaling has become a trend, but even if you don't have that beautiful handwriting, just writing is okay too. But I want to let people know that you have a lot of resources on your website. It's iajw.org. International Association of Journal Writing. There's a lot of free resources there. There's prompts, I guess some monthly prompts. So if you really don't know where to start, you send out monthly prompts, and there's actually a community. If you don't want to do it by yourself, you can kind of join a little journal group, and people motivate, and you can talk to other people who journal.
Yes, absolutely. I recently surveyed our community. I publish a weekly journaling newsletter. And it's filled with articles, journaling prompts, inspiration, and ideas to really help people keep their journaling fresh, and how to use it specific things in their life. So how to journal for more wellness or preventing burnout or dealing with anxiety. So it's not just how to journal, but how journaling can help with these other life issues that we all care about. And I did a survey about what our members like best about being in our journaling community. And I host monthly writing circles and monthly guest interviews with experts. And I thought those would be the top things because people really do like them. And they were second and third responses in the survey. But the number one thing people appreciated is being in community with other journal writers. And I love that because journaling is something that we think of as typically a solitary act. And it is. It's personal, it's private, it should be protected, it should be shared only if we wish to, it shouldn't be violated, we shouldn't read someone else's journal without their permission and all of those things. And in our journaling community, it's like anything people have a passion for. People love to come together in book clubs because they like books or whatever their thing is. And so this is the place for people who have a shared passion or at least curiosity about journaling. And we have a lot of fun together. We do a lot of great writing to heal work together. And we have members from all over the world. We have people who get up because of time differences in the middle of the night in their pajamas to join our monthly writing circle. And that's a guided journaling experience. And it follows some protocol based on a book that I co-authored called Writing Alone Together. And there's a lot of power in coming together. And two, connection really fuels our creativity. And being witnessed in our self-expression is very transformative. People often talk about how cathartic, how therapeutic, how fun it is to come together with other people and do this thing that's typically done alone. Yeah. So a lot of people would never think of joining a journaling community because they wouldn't even know it exists, but we do. And we're a growing community and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the reasons we wanted to have you on the show is so people can know. And I know a lot of people are saying, I want to write a book. I'm going to write a book. This is a great way to get started because you're just going to be writing, at least starting to write and use those writing muscles every day. You'll be in a community of writers who can support you. So many people, like you said, want to write memoir. I would think this is a great way to get started. So people can go right to your website, right? It's iajw.org. Join the group. A lot of the resources you have are free too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a free resources page, which is really easy to find on the site. If you go, as Kara said, iajw.org, there's a free resources tab. And there's our blog and the weekly newsletter. All of those are free and inspiring resources. And the ability to find a place that fuels something that can get stale. Because sometimes people will say, I just don't know what to write about. I've been writing for years. You say the same thing. How do you open those new doors into what to write about? And that's the most daunting thing for people, especially new journal writers, is what to write about. And prompts help with that because they point you in all kinds of different possibilities. There's questions and so forth. And I just want to pick up on what you said about writing a book, Kara, because what I have found in my years focused in on journaling work and workshops is that there's about half the people. I always say, how many of you are journal writers out in a group at a workshop? And, some hands will go up. How many of you are writers? And some other hands will go up. And how many of you are both a journal writer and a writer? And I find it's kind of 30% of people will land in each category. So there's lots of journal writers who never want to write a book. And there are lots of aspiring writers who want to use journaling as a tool to help them do that. Yeah. And as you said, we get better at what we do. So if we want to be better writers, then we need to write regularly. We need to use those writing and creative self-expressive muscles. And journaling is a way to do that. And it also gives us raw material for books. So my memoir I'm working on, I'm mining my journals. So the first moment I met my birth mother, for example, I was writing in my journal when the doorbell rang and I was about to see her for the first time. I have all that raw material, how I felt, what I was wearing. I would never have that if I wouldn't have been journaling. I just wouldn't remember. So there's lots of bridges that can support writing as journal writers.
Absolutely. Well, Linda, thank you so much for coming on and telling us a little bit more about it. There's so much science to it and so much more than we realize that goes into journaling or could go into it. I want to invite people one more time that they can go to your website for the International Association of Journal Writing. It's iajw.org. If you're watching on WSB.com, you can share this link with people, or if you're watching on the streaming app, we appreciate you tuning in for Kara's Cures, where we always talk about the cutting edge of wellness. Linda, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, and I hope you can write often, Kara. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
I'll try. Thanks.